All right, so welcome to another deep dive.
That's fun.
Yeah, today we're going to be diving into Stephen King's The Shining.
Oh, good one.
Yeah, a classic.
That is classic.
Yeah. And you've given me, we've got some analytical essays and a really interesting podcast episode to kind of break down, this whole story and all the layers to it. So are you ready to get into this haunted hotel and this family on the brink and this kid with, this terrifying gift?
Absolutely. I think it's fascinating. King just takes these like very ordinary elements. You got a family, a hotel, snowstorm, like who hasn't been snowed in.
Right.
And he turns it into something so disturbing, like just it really gets under your skin and stays with you. Psychological horror.
Yeah, it all starts with that setting, right? The Overlook Hotel.
Right.
And it's more than just a backdrop.
Oh, for sure.
It's like this thing, this entity.
Yes. Yes. One of the sources even described it as like an architect of suffering.
Oh.
Which I thought was just a great way to put it. It really is like this character.
Yet it has its own agenda.
It has its own agenda.
It's like trapping them there with that snowstorm, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's using that isolation to its advantage. Just completely preys on them and their vulnerabilities. Everything, every like anxiety and everything just gets like amplified. Everything gets pushed to the breaking point. It's like this pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Just like every little like conflict, every like unspoken fear just gets magnified tenfold.
Yeah. And it's not even just like physically trapping them.
Right?
Right. Like it's like emotionally isolating them too.
Yeah, definitely. One of the essays pointed out that it feeds on secrets, like unspoken resentments, and it uses those cracks in their relationships to really like, pry them apart.
Like Jack.
Yeah.
He's the dad. He wants to write. He's lured in by that peace and quiet. Like he can finally get some work done.
Yeah.
But it's not really what it seems.
Oh no, it's deceptive. It's like dangling this carrot, this tempting carrot, and it's manipulating him, fueling these darker impulses.
So it's not like the hotel's creating the evil. It's just like it's exploiting what's already there.
Exactly. Yeah. It just recognizes those weaknesses. It's like, we were talking about Jack. So his alcoholism,
Right.
past violence,
Desperate for success.
and it uses all of that against him. It's almost like the hotel is like a psychological mirror reflecting back all of his inner demons, amplifying them.
Yeah, it's creepy how it like caters to everyone, but in these like sinister ways, So Danny, he's got the shining.
Right.
This little boy.
The little boy.
And it's like this world of wonder and imagination.
Yeah.
But it's twisted.
Yeah.
Those topiary animals that come to life.
Yeah. And the twins.
Like ghostly twins.
The twins.
Yeah, it's like Ting Kang blends this mundane with the supernatural.
Yeah, yeah. Masterfully blends them, so you never know what's real and what's not.
So unsettling.
It's really unsettling.
And there's this constant like question of like, what is the source of the evil?
Right.
Is it the hotel itself? Is it the Native American burial ground?
Well, the podcast mentioned that. Yeah.
Is it something even older, more malevolent?
Right. Like, what is it? And that's what King does so well. It's that uncertainty that really adds to the horror.
Right.
You're always questioning, and it makes you feel like even if you escape the hotel, the evil might still be out there.
It's like a manifestation of something darker, like maybe in all of us.
That's a great point. And it really, I think it challenges that traditional view of good versus evil.
Yeah.
Instead of it being this like clear-cut battle, it's more insidious. It's like this thing that seeps in the cracks.
Yeah.
Changes our perceptions.
Like we think of evil as this like monstrous thing.
Yeah.
But in The Shining, it's the slow creep. It's a poison.
It's like a poison, yeah.
And Jack Torrance becomes the personification of that, right?
Yes.
It's easy to just say he's the villain.
Right.
But, the sources are painting a more complicated picture.
Yeah, he's deeply flawed, but he's a victim of the hotel.
Yeah.
And his own vulnerabilities.
He's an alcoholic, recovering, haunted by the past, wants to prove himself.
Right. Wants to be a successful writer. And the Overlook uses that.
Yeah.
It feeds his ego,
Mm-hmm.
Offers him like false inspiration, a sense of power. And at the same time, it's like chipping away at his sanity. It's really like using him as a pawn in this twisted game.
Yeah, it's like watching someone just slowly lose themselves.
Right.
Like just their better nature is just eroded.
Yeah.
And yet there's these glimpses of like the old Jack
Right.
who loves his family and wants to do right.
Yes, exactly. And those moments just make his downfall all the more tragic. You see him fighting. But ultimately, the Overlook, his internal struggles are just, they're too much.
Yeah, too powerful to overcome.
Too powerful.
Which brings us to, I guess, like the core of this story, the family, right?
Torrance's.
The Torrances. Their problems, it's not just ghosts.
No, it's way beyond ghosts. They're battling their own, like, internal demons before they even step foot in the hotel.
Yeah, and their dynamic is messed up, it's complicated. There's a history of violence.
Right, a lot of unspoken resentments.
Yeah.
Just this underlying sense of fear and distrust.
Like Jack, he was violent with Danny.
Yes.
In the past.
It hangs over them.
Yeah, like a dark cloud. And then you've got Danny.
Right.
With his shining.
With the shining.
He can sense his parents' anxieties. He's seeing these visions.
Yeah, it all just adds to the tension.
Yeah.
It's like he becomes like this lightning rod for the hotel's evil. He's so sensitive to all the supernatural stuff because of the shining, but it also makes him so vulnerable.
Yeah, it's like he's caught in the middle.
Yeah.
Of his parents fighting and the hotel.
Yeah, he's in the crossfire.
Yeah.
And the Overlook, it just takes advantage of that.
Yeah.
Preys on his innocence. Uses his imagination to draw him deeper in.
So let's get into some of those specific supernatural things that happen. The sources, they really get into some creepy details.
Yeah, and it's not always like the jump scares that are effective.
Right.
It's the subtle things like the creeping dread, that feeling that you're being watched. That's the stuff that really gets into your skin.
Like Danny's visions.
Yes, exactly. The Grady twins.
Yeah, the woman in room 217.
That elevator overflowing with blood.
Oh, yeah. It's just so disturbing.
It's so disturbing. Just taps into our primal fears, like
the
stuff that hides in the back of our minds.
And King doesn't just use the visuals.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
It's the sounds too.
Yes, the sounds.
The voices Wendy hears.
Oh, yeah.
The ghostly laughter. The emptiness of the hotel.
It's that constant attack on the senses. That's what makes it so effective. You never feel safe.
Right.
It's always there, lurking.
Yeah.
Like right there under the surface.
It's like the hotel is talking to them.
Yes.
Whispering in their ears.
Whispering, planting those seeds of doubt.
Yeah.
And paranoia.
So this is more than just a haunted house story.
Oh, it's so much more.
All right.
Yeah, it's about sanity breaking down, identity unraveling.
Yeah.
And that terrifying feeling that the monsters we fear might be inside us all along. It's deep stuff. It's interesting you say that because one of the sources actually argued that the real horror of The Shining isn't even like the supernatural stuff, but it's actually like the family falling apart.
Oh, interesting. Like it's not just tormenting them individually.
Yeah.
It's like breaking their bonds.
Yeah. Like it's turning their love and loyalty into weapons against each other.
Yeah, think about that scene where Jack attacks Wendy in the bathroom.
Oh God, yeah.
It's not just like a scary moment. It's like all that like resentment, the fear, the mistrust.
Yeah.
The hotel has just been like feeding it.
It's like the hotel has poisoned their relationship.
Right.
Like twisted their perceptions of each other.
Yeah.
They become strangers, even enemies.
And it's so unsettling how King shows this this manipulation. It's
Yeah.
not in your face.
No, it's so subtle. Like you barely notice it.
Right. The hotel's not shouting at them. It's like this whisper.
It's like a little whisper in the back of their minds,
Yeah.
planting these seeds of doubt,
Yeah.
paranoia.
And one of the essays, I think, they called it a gaslighting effect.
Oh, yeah.
Where the characters are just constantly questioning their own sanity.
Yeah, their memories.
Yeah.
Like their whole perception of reality.
And that just makes them, I guess, more vulnerable.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're already on edge.
Yeah.
They're already like fighting their own demons.
Right.
And the hotel just comes in and amplifies all of it.
Yeah. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the tempting carrots.
Oh, yeah.
That the Overlook dangles.
The tempting carrots, yeah.
The sources keep bringing these carrots up.
Yeah.
But, What are they
Yeah.
exactly?
That's a good question.
And how do they fit into like the bigger picture?
Well, I think they represent these like seductive promises that appeal to like what we really want deep down. But they lead us like down a bad path. Like things that seem too good to be true,
Right.
which they usually are.
So for Jack, it's the writing.
Yeah, like creative inspiration, the
To
recognition.
Danny, it's the shining.
Yeah, the allure of the supernatural, that world of wonder and imagination.
And for Wendy, maybe it's the hope for her marriage.
Yeah, that stability, some peace.
Right. Like each character is offered this thing they crave.
Yeah,
But it comes at a cost.
a huge cost.
Their sanity.
Yeah, their relationships, their lives.
Yeah.
Like King is giving us a warning here, I think, about giving into temptation.
Right. Like letting our desires blind us.
Blind us to the consequences.
Makes you think about like, our own tempting carrots.
Yeah, like what are we drawn to, even when we know they might not be good for us?
Right.
What are those promises that we need to watch out for?
Yeah. I think that's like one of the most powerful things about this book.
Oh, for sure.
It's making us confront our own weaknesses.
Yeah, like our own susceptibility to being like manipulated.
Yeah.
And that dark side of like human nature that's in all of us.
Yeah. It's like you said earlier, like we think of evil as this monster,
Right.
but it can be something else.
Yeah. It can be like disguised as something good,
Yeah.
something appealing,
Right.
something that promises to give us what we really want.
So how do we recognize those things in our own lives?
That's the question. Yeah.
How do we protect ourselves from being manipulated?
Yeah.
Whether it's, from outside or even from ourselves.
Well, I think the sources offered a couple of good insights. One is like self-awareness,
Okay.
like really knowing yourself, your weaknesses, your patterns,
Mhm.
the things that trigger you.
Like knowing your own overlook.
Yeah, exactly. Like what are those situations, those thought patterns that tend to lead you down that dark path?
Right, right.
And once you know that, you can start to like build up those defenses,
Okay.
develop those coping mechanisms,
Mhm.
practice, being mindful, maybe seek support from others.
Which brings up another thing that the sources talked about a lot.
What's that?
Connection.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Human connection.
Human connection, absolutely.
Hmm.
One of the essays even argued that isolation is like the perfect place for evil to grow,
Right, right.
When we're cut off, when
Yeah.
we feel alone,
Yeah.
that's when we're most vulnerable.
Think about the Torrances.
Oh, yeah,
Like, they are totally isolated in that hotel.
completely.
Yeah.
And as their isolation grows, so does the Overlook's power.
Yeah.
It's a direct correlation.
Right. And it's not just about being physically near people.
Right. It's about having those real connections,
Yeah.
people we trust,
Yeah.
who could support us, give us perspective.
Right. Like a reality check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A reality check when we need it most.
It's like having people who can help you see through those illusions, those dangers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And being willing to ask for help when you need it, to
Yeah.
reach out.
Because if you keep it all bottled up, you're more vulnerable.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're much more susceptible to those tempting carrots and those whispers of
Right.
the Overlook.
Right. Right.
But having that support system, it can give you the strength to resist those temptations, to fight back.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about like Dick Halloran,
Oh, yeah.
the cook who also has the shining.
Right, right.
He represents that connection, that support.
Yeah, he senses Danny's distress and he tries to warn him. He's that lifeline
Yeah.
to the outside world.
Even though he ends up, another victim,
Yeah.
he's a symbol of hope.
Yeah, resilience.
Yeah.
It shows that even when things are really bad, there's always that possibility for connection, for support, for love.
And that even facing like, really powerful evil, the human spirit can endure.
Yeah, but that endurance often means facing those fears head on,
Yeah.
acknowledging the darkness within.
Which brings us back to the, the big question
Yeah, yeah.
of this deep dive. What are our tempting carrots? How do we cultivate, our own shining
That's it. Yeah.
so we can see through the illusions and make good choices?
Good choices.
Yeah.
It's a question that takes a lot of introspection, self-reflection, and you got to be willing to face those uncomfortable truths about yourself.
Right.
But I think it's a journey worth taking
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, we have the power to overcome those demons,
Yeah.
to resist those tempting carrots.
To choose the light.
Absolutely. Choose the light.
It's funny, like, as we've been talking about these carrots, these tempting carrots, and this whole idea of evil, I keep going back to, like, some of the specific things in the book, like the scenes, the symbols that really drive all this home.
Yeah, King, he's a master of using like little detail to kind of set things up, foreshadowing. And it just create this feeling of unease, you know?
Right.
And one of the things that really jumped out at me from the sources was this whole like motif of twins.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it's there throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the Grady twins,
Right.
the Ghost Girls, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's other instances of this doubling too, like the 2 bearskin rugs,
Oh, okay.
the 2 fireplaces in the Colorado Lounge,
Right.
even the hedge animals. There's 2 of them.
Wow. I never picked up on that.
Yeah, it's this.
What do you think he's doing with that? Like, what's the point of all this duality?
Well, one of the sources said that the twins represent these like opposing forces inside each of us. You know, the good and the bad, the rationale and the irrational, like the human and the monster kind of.
Yeah. It's like they're literally showing that struggle, like a visual.
Yeah, like Jack, Danny, Wendy.
Right.
They're all going through it.
Yeah, and as the story moves along, it's like those lines get blurred.
Oh yeah, totally blurred.
Jack's losing himself.
Right.
Danny's, his innocence is fading.
Right.
Wendy's, her sense of reality is just shattered.
It's like the Overlook is using those twin images to, like, mess with their heads. You know, to make them doubt what's real.
It's like that gaslighting.
Yeah, exactly like we were talking about before. Like, they're always second-guessing themselves, their memories, their experiences.
And that just makes them, I guess, easier to control.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they're primed for it.
Because, like, they're literally being pulled apart.
Yeah, their sense of self is just unraveling.
And then they become,
puppets.
Puppets in the Overlook's game.
Right, and that's where the real horror is.
Yeah.
It's not just the ghosts and the blood.
Yeah, it's the mental stuff.
The psychological torture, the way it just slowly breaks down the human spirit.
And King, he does that through his language too. His sources talk about his imagery, his metaphor.
He really knows how to use words to create that feeling of dread.
Yeah.
Remember how he describes the woman in room 217?
Oh yeah.
Like the way he writes about the smell, her skin.
Yeah.
It's like repulsive, but you can't look away.
It's like he knows how to hit those fears,
Yeah, and those desires.
Yeah.
Like the stuff we try to hide.
Yeah, but it's always there.
It's there, yeah.
And he's so good with how much to give you.
Yeah, like how much to reveal.
Yeah.
How much to leave to your imagination.
Like that scene with Danny in the mirror.
So yeah.
Red rum.
Yeah.
It's just a word, but it's
terrifying.
Terrifying.
So simple, but so effective.
It's like at first you don't get it.
Yeah, it's just letters, right?
Right.
Like a kid wrote it.
Yeah.
But then it hits you.
Yeah.
The meaning, it's like, oh God.
And that's King. He's setting things up.
Yeah, he's a master of foreshadowing.
Right.
He plants these little hints.
Yeah.
And the tension just keeps building and building.
Yeah.
And red rum, it becomes like a symbol of this evil that's taking over, like a reminder that things have gone really wrong.
It's amazing how King can create this whole like terrifying story with just a few things, right?
Yeah, a family,
a hotel,
a snowstorm,
a word on a mirror,
a word. Yeah.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive into The Shining, it's more than just a horror story, right?
Oh, for sure.
It's about how fragile we are.
Yeah.
How sneaky evil can be.
And how powerful temptation is.
Yeah.
It reminds us that the monsters we're scared of might not be out there, but inside us.
Yeah.
In our own heads.
Right. And maybe the serious monsters are the ones we create.
I think so, yeah.
We hope this deep dive has given you, the listener, some new ways to think about The Shining.
Yeah, maybe it's made you think about your own tempting carrots and how you might be vulnerable to being manipulated.
Right.
Whether it's by other people or by yourself.
The most important thing is to be aware.
Yeah. Stay vigilant.
Cultivate your own shining, so to speak.
Exactly.
So you can see clearly and make the right choices.
The right choices.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.